So, Michael Popok, Legal AF, I want to walk through the appellate process and the impact on other cases pending around the country of the new decision by one district court federal judge, Judge Aileen Cannon, down in Florida, to dismiss the Donald Trump Mar-a-Lago indictment against him and his other co-conspirators because she, for the first time in over 50 years, and the only federal judge to have so found, and overruling decades of appellate precedent, has decided that the special counsel appointment by the Department of Justice and Merrick Garland was invalid, improper, and illegitimate under the appointment clause and the apportionment clause of the Constitution. It's a misreading of those statutes authorized by Congress to allow just this type of prosecutor to be created by the Department of Justice under the auspices of the Attorney General. It's a fringe theory. It'll be going up now. However, it is now the ruling. She has now dismissed the indictment in Mar-a-Lago against Donald Trump just one business day after the shooting in Pennsylvania and on the day of the Republican National Convention. I don't think that political calendar and that the roiling of the waters since the tragedy in Pennsylvania was by accident or by happenstance. I think the timing of it was with a judge mindful of the political calendar. Now let's move it forward. That's what happened. What happens next is the purpose of my hot take. First thing I'm going to do Florida. Then I'm going to talk about other special counsel proceedings around the country, both involving Donald Trump and those that are not, and the different ways it can end up on a appellate track and ultimately to the United States Supreme Court, the timing of all that. In Mar-a-Lago, now we finally have a 93-page decision, for a judge that loved to just issue half-page, quarter-paragraph, paperless orders to avoid being overturned by her bosses at the 11th Circuit sitting in Atlanta. Well, those days are over. I expect an immediate appeal by the Department of Justice and the Special Counsel's Office to tell the 11th Circuit that once again, and for the third time in the case, on fundamental issues, that Judge Cannon is wrong. This is the third time she's been wrong. She tried twice to interfere with the actual investigation by the executive branch and the Department of Justice and the FBI of Donald Trump and in Mar-a-Lago before there was even an indictment. And she was reversed twice by two separate appellate panels of the 11th Circuit sitting in Atlanta, one led by the Chief Judge, Judge Pryor, and the other a separate panel. So not once, but twice did she set up a mechanism and try to interfere inappropriately as a trial judge. Now we fast forward for 2 years. She's been presiding, and I use that term lightly, over the case. It hasn't moved. There's no trial date. She's been ruling constantly against the Department of Justice, and now the final death blow that she's issued today. What happens next? Not only does Special Counsel Jack Smith, the Department of Justice, file an immediate appeal in the next day, a notice of appeal, and then a brief probably the next a week or two with the 11th Circuit. The 11th Circuit will then mandatory appeal. This is not discretionary. They have to take this appeal because it's the dismissal of the entire case. They will then set a briefing schedule through the clerk, and they will put together a 3-judge panel. My gut is that Chief Judge Pryor is going to be on that panel. They will then set a briefing schedule. We'll know if Jack Smith asks for expedited briefing, which I believe he will, and if that'll be granted. If it will, the way it was before, I think we're going to get a briefing schedule that's going to time out in mid-August and a ruling sometime in August by that panel, by the 11th Circuit. And if it reverses the decision by the judge, the other thing that Jack Smith's going to ask for is to have the judge reassigned. There's a power to reassign. It has to do with another federal statute about the power of the chief judge, the power of the 11th Circuit to reassign as a remedy. It's not so much recusal, but reassignment. And if they reassign the case to another judge within the Southern District of Florida, like Chief Judge Altanaga or somebody else who's certainly more qualified, then they will inherit the case. They can revisit all of the decisions that Judge Cannon made in the past. There is certain law of the case, but really they have a free hand here because she made so few decisions and to reset this case for trial. Now, Donald Trump won't like that decision by the 11th Circuit if it goes against him. He'll ask for what's called an en banc, full 11th Circuit panel of 12 or 15 judges. If there's not enough votes in the majority to hold that hearing, the 11th Circuit 3-judge panel will be the ruling. Then whoever loses, who's ever on the losing side of that decision, will have to take their appeal and ask for an appeal to the United States Supreme Court. How much do you think you're paying in subscriptions every month? The answer is probably more than you think. Over 74% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. I definitely did. Like the time I forgot that I subscribed to Peacock, but thanks to Rocket Money, I'm no longer wasting money on the ones I forgot about. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. With Rocket Money, I have full control over my subscriptions and a clear view of my expenses. I can see all of my subscriptions in one place. And if I see something I don't want, Rocket Money can help me cancel it with just a few taps. I love how the dashboard shows me this month's spending compared to last month, so I can clearly see my spending habits. Plus, they'll help me create a custom budget and keep my spending on track. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is submit a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. They'll deal with customer service for you. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/legalaf. That's rocketmoney.com/legalaf. rocketmoney.com/legalaf. While that is going on, let me move out of Florida to the D.C. case. In the D.C. election interference case, what's going to happen based on what happened for Judge Cannon is that we can expect within moments a motion filed by Trump's lawyers to Judge Chutkan, who's about to reconvene her case, which had been put on hold for over 8 or 9 months because they've been waiting on the United States Supreme Court ruling, which came in on July 1st on immunity in order for her to move her case forward. She was going to reconvene everybody first week in August. Now, first up on the block is going to be Donald Trump's new motion citing Judge Cannon's decision as persuasive but not precedential authority for the proposition that Special Counsel Jack Smith is illegitimate, as is his funding, and the whole indictment should be dismissed. They're gonna cite to it. Why do I say they're gonna argue it as being persuasive but not precedential? It doesn't bind any other judge in the Southern District of Florida, Judge Cannon's ruling, in the 11th Circuit, or any other circuit court. It's Judge Cannon's decision. And unless it's the highest court of the 11th Circuit in Florida, it's not binding on any. So there could be a judge right next to Judge Cannon, like Judge Middlebrooks. It's not binding on him either. It could be argued to be persuasive, like they could argue for the Trump side, well, there's 93 pages. She makes a very compelling argument. You should adopt it. But that doesn't mean she has to adopt it, and she's not bound to adopt it, Judge Chutkan. She'll make her own decision. And if she rules against Donald Trump, he'll take an appeal to the D.C. Court of Appeals, which is the equivalent of the 11th Circuit, but sits over D.C. courts. Same thing, 3-judge panel, there'll be a ruling, whoever loses may be asking for en banc of the full panel, and then there'll be either competing decisions. If the 11th Circuit rules, for instance, in favor of Judge Cannon, but the D.C. Court of Appeals doesn't, we have what's called a split circuit. A split circuit leads to an immediate appeal to the United States Supreme Court to resolve the split in the circuits. Similarly, if there's not a split circuit, the 11th Circuit rules in favor of the Department of Justice and Special Counsel, so does the D.C. Court of Appeals. There still can be an appeal to the United States Supreme Court by Trump in the losing position to try to get them to reverse these two decisions by the 11th Circuit and the D.C. Court of Appeals. Let's continue with the impact of the Judge Cannon decision. It will embolden Donald Trump or others, who have been on the other receiving end of a special counsel decision. and a verdict led by a special counsel to move to vacate their convictions, arguing that their special counsel was illegally appointed, citing to the canon persuasive, not precedential impact. So line them up. Whoever has a special counsel against them, Hunter Biden, which makes for an interesting position because Hunter Biden's lawyers may take a different position than the Biden Department of Justice about the legitimacy of the special counsel, but he could file a motion like that. Anybody who's being prosecuted by a special counsel as opposed to Main Justice or a U.S. Attorney's Office or had at any time in the past can move to vacate their conviction, arguing that the prosecutor was illegitimate. You see the floodgates that have been opened by Judge Cannon's decision potentially? So if I'm anybody that got convicted by any special counsel, Manafort, any of the Trumpers, anybody that had a special counsel, the ones that Bill Barr appointed while he was a member of the Trump administration, when he was special counsel, the prosecution, if Michael Cohen was prosecuted by special counsel, open it up. Just go down the list and move to vacate. Doesn't matter how old it is, and have it removed from your record. That is the impact that has not, of course, been thought through by the adoption of this fringe theory by Aileen Cannon down in Florida. But that's the floodgates that she's opened until courts of appeal start to tamp this down, and the Supreme Court has spoken. Now, let's talk about the Supreme Court for a minute. The Supreme Court has had many cases involving special prosecutors and special counsels in front of it, and has never found that the special counsel or special prosecutor is illegitimate. Never. Or that any of the appointment clauses or any of the statutes authorizing them by the Department of Justice and by Congress are illegal. In fact, in the immunity decision, they could have done that, even though it wasn't briefed by the parties. An appellate court can have its own issue that wasn't raised by any party and make that an issue in the case that they decide on. And the majority decision, 6-3, did not do that. Concurrence, Clarence Thomas, in a love letter to Judge Cannon that she adopted, said that maybe he's definitely illegitimate and the whole special counsel position should be eliminated and the indictment should be dismissed. But the majority didn't bite on that. And whenever they had, they've enforced subpoenas related to special counsel. Every court has enforced subpoenas or powers or indictments related to special counsel. Every one of them, except for Judge Cannon. I'm just going to show you how outside the mainstream, how much of an outlier, how much of a rogue decision this really is by Cannon. But look at the domino effect and the cascading effect that this could have, not just for Donald Trump, but for everybody who's ever had a special counsel appointed against them and had an indictment and a conviction as a result. We're going to continue to follow the next steps by the Department of Justice and special counsel in Mar-a-Lago, right, to put this genie back in a bottle, if they can, through the first stop at the 11th Circuit, as Donald Trump goes after Judge Chutkan, literally and figuratively, to try to get his case dismissed on the same grounds, right here on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch Network, and on our podcast, which we do on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, only on the MeidasTouch Network, 8 p.m. YouTube, live, audio podcast platforms, wherever you get them. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.